All right, so this is a video on how to make warm and cool color wheels to test out your paints, your watercolor paints. So you can create a circle by tracing the outline of some tape, a tape roll, or maybe the lid of an oatmeal box, whatever you have that's a nice big round circle. And then you're gonna make a line through the center of the circle, and then just mark like kind of a middle point. And then you're gonna draw one diagonal line kind of going through that middle point, and then another one going through that middle point. And what that's going to give you is 6 sections, okay? And then what you can do is you can kind of section this off so that there's, you know, a larger section on the outside and a smaller section within. That's what I like to do. So it's kind of like drawing another circle within that circle. And we're not being perfectionist about this. You can see mine is a little bit wonky. That's totally fine. All right, and we're going to do that again with the other side. So, you know, we can start labeling this. This can be our warm, and this can be our cool. And again, I'm going to find the center. I'm going to kind of visualize the center point. This just helps me make it a little bit more even. And then you can even imagine like a circle within this. That's actually probably easier than going section by section. Okay, so it's okay if they're a little wonky. That's totally cool. We got the cool and the warm. And now for the fun part, the mixing. So with our warm, we're going to want to use our warm yellow, which in this set is a cadmium yellow. So I'm going to start with that. And I think I'm going to mix right onto the paper. So I'm going to use plenty of water because this is watercolor. We're going in with our cadmium yellow. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and paint with our warm red. So that's our cadmium red. These are easy to remember because both of the cadmiums are warm. So I just paint that in. And you can see it's very orangey. Again, you want to use plenty of water. Okay. And then I'm going to paint a layer of kind of yellow down. And let that kind of cross into the red. To make our orange. So I've got the yellow, and then layer it with the red. So you notice I'm using the water to blend, and I'm blending on the paper. You can also use your little tray if you want to mix the colors in there. But for these wheels, I like to let it kind of bleed into it because I like to see the range of oranges you can get. So we can get like a yellow orange all the way to a red orange and our red. Okay. And then with this section here, we're going to be making violet because this is going to be our blue right here. Whoops, I still have a lot of red on my brush. So you can start to draw the red and some water into this section that's going to turn violet. And then we're going to use our warm blue, which is our ultramarine blue. So we've got all our warm tones in here. I'm going to work quickly so that the water stays wet and doesn't dry on the paper. And then we'll just have our green to do. So it doesn't take too long to get this blocked in. Just use plenty of water. That's always my advice with blending watercolor. The cool thing about watercolor is you can layer, so you can let layers dry and then layer over it. And then if you have pretty good quality paper like we have in our sketchbooks here, you can, like a quality watercolor mixed media paper, you can mix right onto there. to the page. And if I did too much, I just want to show you what happens. If I do too much, I can use water to kind of, you know, remove some. So I'm just kind of lifting it. I could even use a paper towel to kind of dab up, and look at that. So that's kind of how you erase with watercolor. I don't really want to do that because I want to make, whoa, make this violet here. Let's get some violet. Beautiful. So I'm getting my violet. I want kind of blue violet over by the blue side, and maybe like a red violet over by the red side. See if we can make that happen. Yeah, that's looking really nice for our violet. Maybe a little more blue for the blue violet side. Okay, and then our last one is green. And this will be a more dull green because the warm pigments, especially the ultramarine, it creates almost like, it almost creates a brown because the yellow is so orangey. It's almost like a mixture of all three. And we'll see that all three primaries make a brown type tone. So let's mix our cadmium yellow and ultramarine blue to make a green. So I'm getting that yellow green, and then I'll go back in with more blue, try to get more of a blue green closer to the edge of the blue and extend it out. Okay, and so then we have a color wheel that is warm. If you want to label these, you can, like Cad Red, just as abbreviation, Cad Yellow, and Ultra Blue. Okay, great. And now the achromatics. So this is something that is probably a little bit new to you. You may have done this basic color wheel before. By achromatic or neutral, I mean colors that are more along the lines of browns and almost grayish tones. And we get that by mixing all three primaries. And just saying that doesn't really help because there's so many different concentrations you can mix them in. So I like to just kind of mix a couple of complementary colors together and see what happens. And so it's very easy, like what is violet plus yellow? So this side is going to be more violet and a little bit of yellow, and this is going to be more yellow and a little bit of violet. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up some ultramarine blue and some cadmium red to make my violet. Okay. And this is where I like to use this little tray because it helps. If you have anything, if you don't have this little tray, you can use the top of your palette. That will work just fine. So I have my violet and then my cadmium yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cadmium yellow down. Whoops, that's a lot. I think I'll put it down in both areas, but I'm going to put more on this side and then maybe a little lighter of it on this side, but I'm going to put it down in both areas. It's okay if I went over the line a little bit. You know, we're just experimenting, we're learning. This is a kind of visual experience to see what happens when we mix a little bit of, this is a lot of yellow. Why don't we just put some of it up here? There we go. See how I can move it around and lift it? You know, I used to be kind of afraid of watercolor because I didn't think it was very forgiving, but it is actually quite forgiving. You can move it around with the water. You can remove some. Use a paper towel. So I'm going to put way more of the violet into this side and just see what happens. Look at this, and we're getting this beautiful rich color here. It's very nice. Okay, and we'll see how it dries. You never know what it's going to look like until it dries too. That's the other thing about watercolor. So we're going to mix this. I'm going to be a little more generous with the violet here. And then we're getting like a lighter version of that. Really press it around. Okay, interesting. That was an interesting experiment. So this is violet with a little bit of yellow with a little bit of violet. All right, let's do our orange and blue. So I'm gonna always use the lighter color as the base and then slowly mix the darker color in. So that's true of all paints, watercolors, acrylics, whatever you're going to use. So I'm going to start with yellow, slowly mix my red in, because yellow is the lightest, and then red, and then blue, because blue is the darkest. So I'm going to go ahead and take my my orange, my cadmium orange that I've just mixed. Oh, I'm going to bring some into my wheel, because my wheel got a little bit desaturated here with the water. Here we go. I want to make sure there's plenty of water. Beautiful cadmium orange. So on this side, it's going to be, the side I'm painting, it's going to be mostly, or it's going to be orange with a pop of blue, like a little bit more visually of blue. And on the other side, it's going to be very minimal blue. Okay, so this is where we have to be really delicate, because the blue is very potent and it will make it dark very quickly. So this side is going to have more blue, and this side's just going to have a pop of it. So I'm going to slowly add it. Look at that, that's an interesting color. Slowly add my blue. So you can see it is different than the one next to it, even though it is all just red, yellow, and blue. Like, we're using the same 3 pigments, but it kind of tricks you. It's like a way to make sure that you're actually mixing it. I'll put a little more orange. Oops, that's kind of too much. So it's just a kind of playing around kind of game here. And I just wanted you guys to know how to make neutrals. They're very useful. These rich browns and kind of desaturated yellows and even grayish tones. Like, we'll see some of them even have a grayish tone to them. You do have a beautiful collection of browns in your palette, but sometimes you need to just work with primaries. And so it's nice to know how to mix those tones yourself. Okay. And then the last one is cadmium red and green. So I actually have some warm green from earlier today, so I'm going to use that. And I'm just going to go in my cadmium red. Whoa. These are so high quality, guys. This is beautiful pigment. I'm like overusing it because I'm so used to using the like school quality pigments. This is a very nice set. Glad I was able to get this for you guys. Okay. All right, so I've got some cadmium red on both sides, and I'm going to add my green. I have some green from earlier already made, so I'm just going to use that just to save on time. And we'll see when this dries, you know, what comes out. And they'll be completely different in your cool wheel. So I'm just going to show you the warm wheel, and you're going to take the same steps that you learned and do it in the cool wheel. So I'm going to mix up a little more green. So again, ultramarine violet and cadmium yellow to make my green. And this side has got to have, you know, much more green into it. And this side definitely needs a little bit of green before it dries. So for this color wheel, just work quickly so that you can blend. And then you'll see how beautiful this is when it dries. You'll have some different kind of brown tones. All right, so that's your neutrals in the center, and it, you know, they'll dry a little different than they're looking. And that's your warm wheel. So we have the warm wheel, and then with your cool wheel, you're going to do exactly the same thing. Just go through the same steps where you have, you're going to have your lemon yellow. You can even, you know, label it so you remember. So lemon yellow. And you can see visually it's a lot more bright and cool. And then we're going to have, this is going to be a brighter wheel. We're going to have our phthalo blue, and we're going to have the viridian crimson, or alizarin crimson, my bad, alizarin crimson, which is very dark. I haven't tested that one out. I think that's going to make a beautiful purple. So this will be your brighter wheel altogether. You're going to have more like the jewel tones, and this is a more neutral, natural looking wheel. And so you're gonna have your warm and cool. If you want, if you have time and you're just really having fun and you wanna go the extra mile, not required, but for fun, you can make a third wheel on another page, or wherever you have space, and you can just choose your favorites. So like if cadmium red and like phthalo blue are your favorites, why not see how they look? You could also just, you know, not make a wheel and just for fun play around with that sort of combinations, just so you can see how warm and cool interact, because it's not like we have to keep them like, oh, just warm together and just cool together. Like, we're the artists, we can choose whatever mixtures that we want. So that is totally cool. So let's see what that looks like. Oh, wow, it's almost like a brown, the violet of the cadmium red and the phthalo blue. That's really interesting. It's almost a brown. That's beautiful. All right, so that is your assignment today. Have fun with this, and you can bring it to class next time and I can take a look at it.